Welcome, everyone, wherever you are logging in from, whether it's afternoon or morning or whatever it is, welcome. This is a QW Plus Connect session, first Thursdays at 3, and today's session is about preparing for a TV interview. And we have amazing guests. Guest speakers. I was told in our last first Thursdays, which was about preparing for radio interviews, that these are not guests, they are co-creators. So to the co-creators, welcome. And to those of you who are just joining either via LinkedIn Live or through the session with us on Zoom, welcome. My name is Renee Sparks, and I represent Quote This Woman Plus in this session. So without any further ado, we have Lola Cynthia and Lanina Rasool that's joining us. We're going to be talking about preparing for TV interviews. And if you've been on these sessions, you are welcome to unmute and ask questions or put a question in the chat or share your experiences. That's what the session is about. We had an Each One Reach One campaign in August, and we reached 106 new Women Plus experts. And so these sessions are also about giving you that opportunity to ask the questions about being connected to media. What does it mean? If I get asked by someone to be interviewed on TV, what am I supposed to do? So please do tap into these sessions. They are extremely useful, and they are there for your learning and for our learning as a collective. All right, so let us kick off. I'll start with you, Lolo, and please do give me the opportunity to introduce these phenomenal women in the way that they should be. So Lola Cynthia is an international development multimedia producer and award-winning communication strategist with 10 years of experience. She's known for her innovative approach to creating advocacy campaigns promoting behavioral change, health education, gender equality, sexual and reproductive health, and social justice. That's a lot, right? And she's still there. I thought she dropped off for a minute. Okay, her work has been made significant impact by mobilizing communities and driving positive social impacts for organizations such as Voice Amplified, World Hepatitis Alliance, USAID, and Forest Harvest, Global Surgery Fellowship, Aspen Institute, Story of Girls Resistance, and Dandelion Africa. Lolo has earned numerous awards and accolades, including being named one of the 100 most influential Nigerian women. Aspen New Voices, is it Why Niger Media Person to Watch? And what is a Social Media Person for Social Good. She has also received international recognition from platforms such as CNN, BBC, CGTN, and Global Citizen. Welcome, Lolo. Amazing. I mean, I had to read this. It was like, come again. I can't leave any of it out. Okay. So welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. Thank you.
It's such a pleasure. And thank you for making the time. I know both of you are so busy, and so really to our community, this is such a gift. Lanina, welcome. This is not your first rodeo with Quote This Woman, but welcome. And I'm going to do your introduction the same way. Lanina Rasool is a journalist with over 15 years of experience specializing in human rights and social justice reporting. Her career began at Pentech, which is now CPUT, where she studied journalism to pursue her love of writing. And really, if you haven't followed this woman yet, please do. She writes the most beautiful stories on her Facebook and I think LinkedIn as well. Yeah. She went on to work at leading magazines such as Femina and Cosmopolitan before transitioning into the nonprofit sector with organizations including Activate Change Drivers and Code for South Africa. In 2017, Lanina joined Cape Town TV as news editor and anchor of City News, and a year later, she became the deputy director of the station, and in 2019, she received Ford Foundation funding to create The Woman Show. So that was a weekly television program. Sorry for my voice, summer flu. A weekly television program dedicated to addressing gender-based violence and child protection. She's the mother of a daughter. She's deeply passionate about amplifying women's voices, especially women of color, and reshaping media representation to reflect diverse realities and struggles. Her work continues to push boundaries, ensuring that women's stories are told with dignity, urgency, and power. Welcome, Lenina.
Thank you, Dene. It's great to be here and great to be here with Lolo. I feel like I need to be getting tips from you, Lolo. That was a beautiful, introduction.
Oh my God, thank you so much. Sometimes it's when you hear someone read about you, like, is that me? Like, when did I do all of this? But this has been like decades in the making. So it sounds so nice, but it's so many years work. Yeah, thank you.
No, definitely, definitely. And we can see it. I mean, again, I follow both of you on social media. I can see how busy you are. So that's amazing. And the one thing I missed out on is that Lolo has her own show, the Lolo Cynthia's show. So just to add that, I don't know how I could have forgotten that. Okay, thank you very much, ladies.
Thank you.
Co-creators, let me use that term. I'm going to kick off with the first question. And again, if you have any questions, anyone listening, anyone, even if it is on LinkedIn, you can put the questions there. If we don't get to it, we'll definitely answer it via LinkedIn. But I'll kick off with the first question. We know this particular question would probably be generalizing, but in your view, when it comes to being TV experts, what do women often get right? And what mistakes do they commonly make?
Okay, I think that's a very interesting question. And the one thing that jumps at me is that for women, we really prepare when we go for an interview because we want to show up as our best self. So we do a lot of preparation. We also have a warm aura. So even when you're on set, it makes it easier for the interviewer to feel comfortable once they're talking to you. So those are some of the things that we do really well when it comes to TV interviews. One thing though that I would say is like a double-edged sword is that because of how much we prepare, we can come across as overly scripted. And that's something that, make women feel like they are so rehearsed. It's almost like it's no longer in quote authentic. But that's because of we overly prepare. So you have your point, this is what you want to say. And if you don't say it in that particular way, you beat yourself up as well. And another thing I think there's a disservice when it comes to when we're doing interviews, that because we always want to show up as our best self, we lose a lot of opportunities. Versus when a man, is given an opportunity, heck, he does not even know what the topic is all about, but it's going to be, I'm going to be there. And he's taking up space and getting more opportunities just because he's showing up. So we want to always come on set being the most intelligent people, which is great. We prepare, but then there is a downside to that. And the last one is also the way we minimize our knowledge. We minimize our authority. So we say things like, I'm not so sure. I doubt that that's true, but I'm not an expert on this, but you are an expert. And this is why you're being called to be, a guest on this TV interview. So those are some things that, that jumps at me when it comes to the challenges or some of the things that women get wrong when it comes to TV interview as well.
Incredible. Thank you so much for that. Lenina, is there anything you'd like to add?
I want to 100% agree with Lolo, and also just echo, it's perfectionism. That's what I found. And I found that when I work with women to sort of increase their visibility and get comfortable sort of on set, the one thing I would often say to them is like, you are already an expert. Right. So we are all experts in our field, and the fact that we've been invited onto TV is because we are an expert. And then secondly, also, they need you. There is no story without you. So often I feel like, and I take this from my time producing the woman show. So I would be the person inviting someone on. And and just as a journalist, I feel like we have been excluded from the media space for so long, and that it's so institutionalized that we feel lucky to be asked, but actually they are lucky. And I can tell you, I felt an extreme relief every time someone said, "Yes, I will come onto your show," because I'm like out here begging for you to come and share your knowledge with us. So it is that. And then, where Lolo was talking about, just this, so the mistake almost starts before, right? Before is one of the biggest things is you phone someone, you ask them, and in our positions, having worked with women, we have these fantastic networks. We know a lot of women, and someone like needs, they need a HR expert, or they need someone, we know who to call and who's going to be able to speak to that topic. And often the first thing those women will do is refer somebody else. So the first mistake we're making is rejecting sort of that invitation, right? Because what we want to do is we are experts. We want to get out there. We want to increase the visibility, and then again, with the minimizing our knowledge, which Lolo said, just like those disclaimers. I used to make those disclaimers myself all the time. And then what I had to do was actively work to not apologize, or actively, what I did for myself was, I had to institutionalize it for myself, and literally be very active in saying, I'm not going to, I had a hack. So it was, people don't know, even if you're not sure about this thing, other people don't know you're not sure. Let me just say, so I would do this thing sometimes when I want to wear my favorite top, and all of a sudden my daughter messed on it, and it was too late to change. I would go out. This is how I'm telling my secret. I would go out and I would say, people say, "Oh, you messed on your top," and I'd be like, "Oh, I didn't know that. It must have been my daughter this morning." They don't know, so we don't self-reject. We don't, start by apologizing and draw the attention to the fact that we don't know, that we think that we're not sure about this factor citing. It is about, you are already an expert, you have over prepared, and you need to speak with a confidence that even if you don't feel confident as a person, or even in the way you look, or even in the way you sound, that the one thing I know for sure is that women, when they get onto that set, they know their facts, right? None of us sit there until we know everything that we're going to be speaking about. So I mean, I just expanding really on the wonderful things that Lolo said.
Incredible. You both have just reminded me. I think someone had said to me, when women see a job advert, then they're like, "Oh, I only know like 90% of the work. I'm not going to apply." Where men would go, "I know 20% or 50% of the work. I'm going to apply." So it's that actually we're not really trusting ourselves to say, "Well, actually, I know enough. I should take this opportunity." So hopefully, to our new experts that will be listening to this, they would think about not rejecting the opportunity, and look into the wonderful gems that you've just given. I'm going to move on. I don't think there were any questions as yet, but please, if anyone has questions, do jump in. I'm going to move on now, and I'm taking you back to when you were on air for the very first time, right? So your first on-camera experience, what did it teach you about how to prepare for TV? Go ahead, Lola. You look like you're ready.
Oh my, okay, so because before I even went on TV, I used to do like vlogs. I used to do videos on YouTube. This was like the early 2010, 2011, when people just started blogging on YouTube. So I felt like I had a bit of confidence, and that was my fault, because when I did now have like the live TV, you forget that it's not the same as when you could just like stop the recording and be like, "Oh my God, I was meant to say this. I didn't say that." It's live TV, it's rolling, you have to come prepared. So for me, I did not prepare as much as I think I should have. I thought I knew it. And that's one thing, like it's like I know it here, but you actually have to vocalize it before you go on TV. You have to either practice in the mirror, you have to have your notes there, because it helps you remember the things that you wanted to say. Plus, also, I'm someone that I talk really fast.
Yeah.
And my brain seems to move faster than my mouth seems to move faster than my brain. So I felt like I began to ramble. because I was losing the points that I was meant to say. I was rambling, I was going, from one topic to another topic. Yes, the other person on the other side probably did not know that I was losing my train of thought, and they just felt like, okay, this girl is just excited about the topic she's discussing. But I knew that it was because I wasn't prepared. It was because I assumed that because I used to just on my camera and talk to the camera, it's the same thing as going to a live TV interview, that this is now a difference between me and just the camera and me and another person. And when I say something, the other person is going to have a follow-up question, or the other person is going to have a question that I did not think was going to come. So really covering my base was something that I had to learn really early in my career as, going on TV and being a guest. So for me, that was really, that was my first thing. It made me know that I have to really prepare and I have to write my script, because that for me, writing connects with my brain and it makes me remember. So yeah.
Oh my word, what a learning curve. I mean, you're talking about live.
I
Lavina,
know.
you at least had a bit of a leeway there, right? With your production. Or was it also live?
So the thing with me, I was actually thinking about, when I was thinking about this question, I never meant to be on, never meant to ever be on TV. So I wanted to work at magazines. I was a writer. My dream was to just like sit behind a computer and write things for the rest of my life. I didn't even want to be an editor. But I'll give you the two first interviews that I did as a guest, actually, because what happened was at Femina Magazine, we had put out a motoring supplement. So there was the normal magazine with everything and the motoring supplement. And I was still very young. I was in my early 20s. And they had a radio interview actually secured with one of the big radio stations. I think it was Tim Modise that was going to be interviewing us. And in Femina Magazine, I was in my early 20s. I was 21 when I started, and it was an older woman's magazine. So I was going to speak to the motoring supplement, the car, thing that we were going to do. And the journalist, one of our senior journalists, was going to speak about the articles inside, which was about like marriage and cheating and, sort of more mature topics. And this weird thing happened. For some reason, Tim Modise, if it was him or the journalist that was interviewed, latched onto me, and he didn't ask me anything about the motoring. He just kept asking me about the articles in the magazine that I was also not prepared for. I didn't know what to say. I had no life experience. I'd never been married. And he would do this thing they would go to break, and he would do this thing when he came back. We're here with the other journalist and Lenina Powell. I have no answers to any of his questions, and I have no context to guess. I'm using that because that example came up the other day with someone else, because they were asking me about what if the journalist does ask you things that you don't know, right? And how much, and I'm always talking about having agency in the interview through preparing, but sometimes that's not enough. And then, which leads me to, then I went into the social justice sector. At that point, I am now a communications manager. So I'm not a journalist anymore. And I have to do, again, the organization I work for created this sort of app. And I had to do it was via Zoom or Skype. It was still via Skype interview. I made the assumption that because it's an app that I would be able to share the screen and show the people what I'm talking about. Because how do you, explain technology? It was a completely new thing. It was about civic tech and data and budgets and whatever numbers. And as I got on, in the moment, they said, no, we can't share the screen. So everything that I had prepared was not sufficient or relevant. And I can't remember. I panicked. I might have rambled. I don't remember how it went. But all I know is that at the end, when I said goodbye, I went to go lay. My mom was sitting on the other side, and I went to lay on the floor. And I kept saying, oh, I want to die. I want to die. And my mother was getting so worried about me. But I didn't die. I survived. And we learned from it. So then I learned the things that I learned from there in terms of doing the preparation is like, just check your assumptions, and whether it comes to technology, whether it comes to the content. I've heard even in the GBV space from some survivors or some experts actually who go onto radio stations and look, we don't control the questions.
Yeah.
We can prepare ourselves for what we think those questions are going to be, but with then the person or the journalist or the host asking completely arbitrary stuff that we don't know about. And so that was a lesson for me to just sort of not make any assumptions about where this is going. But again, not to let it freak you out, just to let it inform the way that you prepare for something. So now I'm like, I ask questions like, okay, well, if I need to illustrate how this thing works, can I share my screen, before the interview? You can confirm with them what exactly the topic is going to be that we're speaking about. And it seems like a small thing, but it's quite powerful, because if they've confirmed and they come out with a different topic, you are well within your right, and you can feel extremely legitimate to say, well, this topic wasn't, you didn't ask me to prepare for this topic.
Yeah.
Instead of saying, I don't know. So, out of the worst interviews that you do, I think Lolo said, beat yourself up about, and I did beat myself up about it. You don't take that as a fail, I think the trick is just to take it as a lesson. Yeah.
It's really amazing, because whenever I speak to people, they're like, oh, the internet remembers everything. And so when you say, oh, I wanted to die in that moment, it's like, I can feel that. And I'm sure many of the new experts are like, this is why I don't want to do it. But thank you for giving that reassurance. We are all human. We do make these mistakes, and we can move on from that. So thanks for that. The next one is the TV moves really quickly. And often the edits, they are editing of the conversations, and it's watered down, if I can put it that way. How should women experts prepare key messages and sound bites that cut through clearly? You can go, Lanina, and then Lolo, I think I've just, you've been.
I think, so what I do when I used to prepare for the women's show, obviously I'm hosting, I'm not a guest, but the things I've learned sort of as a journalist about messaging is that when I have a theme, I understand, or I take into account that what we are presenting out there, nobody's going to remember word for word everything that you said, right? And so what I do is I just isolate 3 to 5 what I call value to end user sort of action orientated things. So in communications, and you can Google communications, key messages, etc. And you'll find a lot of information, and you'll find a lot of like online, even free courses that you can do. But the quick and easy thing for me is like, what are 3 to 5 things, sentences, like quick things that people will remember and that are actionable. And so for me, that's very important, and sometimes actionable it doesn't necessarily mean something that they can do, although that helps a lot, like a call to action, but sometimes it's just something that validates them. So for example, me saying, yes, however, I had a TV show and I had so much experience, but I was laying on the floor wanting to die and wanting the floor to swallow me up. If that makes whoever else is listening out there feel better and more able to say yes when they are invited for an interview, then for me, that becomes a key message. Right. So the thing with the courses and the communications is in a formal context, they're very sort of strict about what it should be. But for you, it should just be, what are the things that I want somebody to remember from this? What is the most important things for them to remember? And I like to extend that. I say, how would I like the person to feel after they have stopped listening to this, after they finished listening to this? And so I do that sort of holistic process, and then take my key messaging from there.
Okay, fantastic. Thank you, Lolo. Anything to add on your side?
Yes, I mean, I think Lena has really zeroed in on the key thing, which is preparation and having key messages that you really want the audience to leave with. And for me, what I will also add upon that is the power of repetition. when you even listen to speeches from people that we love, they repeat a sentence, they repeat a phrase. And that's something you should incorporate when you are having interviews. Go back to repeat the same thing you're talking about in different ways so that, it sticks there. Also, another thing is the use of analogies, because sometimes it can be difficult to get like a complex information out there. But if you use an analogy that is very based and grounded on real life, it's easy for people to kind of share that message, to disseminate it in a way that anyone or any level of intellect can actually understand. And the last tip I would give is the power of pauses. Like, economy of words. Like, you don't need to say too much, you just need to say the right things, and you need to know when to pause to really emphasize the message that you're trying to push out there. So that's more like, speaking techniques, but those are the things that also help like give more validity and power to the message that you're pushing out there, especially if they are cutting these clips. Like you said, it's a fast-paced environment. If they're cutting these clips from a long interview for social media, you need to, in your mind, prepare what part of your message you already see going out online on social media. And even if they don't cut that clip, like the host don't cut it, you can go to the page, the YouTube, wherever it is, download it and cut that clip for yourself, because you've already prepared that this is something that would resonate with the audience, that are listening to it, or with your own audience on your own platform as well. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. You both have been so amazing that you've actually touched on a few of the other questions that I had, but I'm going to post one just so that I can get a clear answer there, because I know that there are people waiting for this. So we know TV can be extremely intimidating. What practical tips would you give women experts to manage their nerves and show up with confidence? So you've spoken about preparation, about the topic, but what else could they do? Who'd like to go first?
I can go. That's fine. In terms of nerves, let me tell you, I get this question so often, even when I do training on public speaking and all of that. A lot of people think that being nervous is something that you overcome with time. That's not true. I still get nervous when I want to do an interview, but that's like the human response to something that you cannot guarantee the outcome. What you need to do as a guest is to lean into that, into that emotion. The same emotion of feeling that you get when you're nervous is the same thing you get when you're excited. So even when we look at athletes, when they're about to run, when they're having like a game, they say, I'm not nervous, I'm excited. So that's like retraining and rewiring the brain and your thoughts, especially when you're coming on the TV. So you might be nervous, which is good, but you're nervous because you're excited. You're nervous because you want to do a good job. So maybe instead of looking at it from a place of fear, you look at it from a place of excitement. So that's one. Another thing as well is practice. Like I always say, like you really do need preparation, gives you confidence. Even if you're not going to say every single thing on your note, you know your stuff. So when you sit down there, you're sitting down there with confidence. The last one I'll say, and this is like vanity, dress well. Dress comfortably, wear your power suit, your power dress, whatever it is that makes you feel good, because that's another element that sometimes we don't talk about because it feels like it's a thing of vanity. We should be focused on the content, but like if you feel good, if you look good, you feel good. You're going to sit down comfortably. If you feel like you don't want like the folds on your tummy to show, even if there's nothing wrong, don't wear a top that shows that, because by the time you're in your head about how you look and how you feel like people are going to look at you, you actually lose your train of thought, and it really shows on the camera. So these are just little things that, we can do to retrain our train of thought and to get more comfortable in front of the camera.
Thank you very much. So that's exactly what I was looking for. Because, okay, so Lola was also an Aspen, which was way back then the New Voices Fellowship, but now Aspen Global Innovators. And we had media training. And so from that media training, the only thing I could remember is wear blue, because the camera loves blue. And for the life of me, I just can't get myself to wear blue. So that was the one thing that kind of stuck in my brain, but I understood where the gentleman was going with the talk. But yeah, these are the practical things. Yes, Lanina.
I did not know that about blue.
Yeah, like a baby training.
But I shall listen. Yeah, I know. I'm glad that Lola brought up the way we look and just called it out that sometimes we body, it's about vanity. I used to get questions all the time. So obviously when I started the Woman Show, I did not have a background in broadcast, so I had to learn everything. I had to overcome my nerves. And actually, if you go to the Woman Show Facebook thingy, YouTube, you'll see my first show is so weird and stilted and nervous and stiff, because I was sort of, you know, shoved into broadcast instead of wanting to be a broadcast person. So let me just start. How I got better was, yes, obviously I practiced and I did the scripts and so forth, but really with repetition, it's almost scientific. I'm sure it is scientific. I'm sure there are studies, but it really, really, really helps. And then obviously my nerves would flare up, I think probably, so I did it for 5 years towards let's say over the last 3 years. Now I'm used to it, but it would flare up for specific topics or specific people, like if I'm fangirling someone and I get them in studio. That's when I would still, you know, right up until the end, I would practice in the mirror. Still at this age, with this level of experience, we practice in the mirror, we do all the things, we take our deep breaths. For me, it was always like, yeah, a deep breath, and I'd go into a sort of zone. The thing I wanted to speak about in terms of how you look and what you wear. So one of the things I always say is that let's affirm the nerves, right? So I think one thing I speak about often is I say women are really afraid of visibility and afraid to be seen, and that fear is legitimate because historically throughout generations, you know, the more extreme sort of example I give is that up until it's not that long that women have any legal rights whatsoever, right? So once upon a time, women were property. And so if you were assaulted in any way whatsoever, you could not go to the police. And so what is a way to protect yourself is to make yourself invisible. Now, I read this in a book one year that said women evolved to be invisible as a protective mechanism, right? I believe in sort of what they call intergenerational, do they call it epigenetics or things like that? So I really, you know, believe that some of that fear of our ancestors lives in us now. And so when we feel like irrational things about being seen, because let's be honest, like being seen, being in front of the TV, none of that is like, none of it is a death threat. And yet our body processes it that way. So the first thing is like, you know, just acknowledge I'm really afraid, and that's normal. And the second thing is, you know, when we look at the ways that women, and particularly women experts, are attacked when they are visible, not like men are attacked, where we see, let's say this, we look at, you know, American presidential elections, for example. A man will be attacked or there'll be backlash against what he says, but for women, it will be all of a sudden she's on all these fashion magazines and they're talking about her suit, or they're talking about her hair, or they're talking about her voice. And she is an expert. I mean, she could be a scientist and she's going viral for the way she looks. So there is an overemphasis on what we look like. Yet when we worry about what we look like, we are called vain. You see, and so there's, you know, and so these spaces are really, these fears are real. The space is like set up to be against us. And this is what makes actually, and I had to learn this. This is why every time you say yes to an interview and you go on there and you give it your all and you become really, you know, and you make yourself visible, it is a political act. It is a political act, not just for yourself, but for all of us to say, actually, here's this very scary space that is set up against us, but we're showing up anyway because we believe in our own voices and our own expertise, and we will put it out there. So, and just, you know, and I don't know if I'm rambling a bit now, but I want to say that the most interesting thing for me doing the Woman Show for 5 years was meeting certain women who would not come onto the show. I would spend sometimes 2 hours on the phone with them, just convincing, not even convincing, talking them into a level of self-belief to say that we need like your expertise. And that could be women who have PhDs, women who are directors of organizations, women who are business owners, like, you know, people I would never think would have a problem coming on. And by the way, who loved the experience afterwards, you know? So I think I've even forgotten the question. I just think
It's okay. You're merging a few, so that's awesome.
I'm merging a few things, yeah.
No
But
problem, no
what I
problem.
really want to say is like, you know, your fears are legitimate. It is a scary space. I was also afraid of it. I'm still afraid of it, especially the way we say TV moves, but also the internet never forgets. They cut small things out. It's not like, you know, when we were young and you just get these few like things on YouTube, right? If you're unlucky. Or they used to have those TV shows where they America's Funniest Videos. And they show, you know, these little clips. Now it's just everywhere. But the fear is legitimate. So is the courage. And I think yeah, I forgot the question now completely. But
Not
maybe
a
I
problem.
answered some of it in there.
Not a problem. No, you definitely did. And you touched on the next thing, which was really about how our appearances, right? You both
Oh,
just
yeah.
started speaking about that anyway. So how do we then stay authentic while connecting with a broad audience? I mean, when we're having to face all of these things anyway, you know, if my dress, my shirt is just slightly too low, I'm a bit overweight, or I look a certain way, or I'm talking about a topic that is maybe not even meant for my for the space that I'm in, or whatever it is, but my appearance is the thing that's now being attacked, really, in a way. How do I remain authentic?
So Rene, I'm just gonna come in because I remembered now what you said about the appearance. What I wanted to bring in is that when Kath, who heads up Quote This Woman, and I did an episode, right? And one of the interesting things we said is that when we do conversations, or when women want media training, it's less about what they say and it's more about what they look like and what to wear and the makeup and the appearance and all of those things, right? So, and we just thought that was fascinating. And so I was sort of circling to that actually, one of the ways is that you're going to look great. You know, I mean, I'm just like, lost the plot, but to stay authentic. Sorry, guys. But yeah, ways to stay authentic is to just, I think, circle back to preparation. And to what I do is like I just center myself and I do this as a journalist, but I center myself in the message. So the message is always more important than what I'm gonna look like or what you know. And often, you know, interviews are like kind of like weddings. You know, we started out laughing about our very worst experiences. And that was something that I was thinking about the other day. When I started to recount my first interviews and it becomes funny, I thought, well, the best thing we're going to have is a very funny origin story, right? That we can share with other people to make them feel comfortable, which is the way people talk about wedding blunders. If someone fell into your wedding cake, my aunt always says, we laugh about it now instead of being angry.
Yeah.
So I think the way to stay authentic is just to center your messaging, just to ensure, you know, that to trust that what you're putting across is something that people need. And I firmly believe that no matter what the aesthetics look like, if your messaging is clear and your messaging comes across and you know, that is something that people need and that's something that people respect, that it will it will supersede everything else.
Thank you so much. Lolo, anything you'd like to add?
Yeah, thank you, Lenin. I mean, I think she has said quite a lot and actually answered the question for this one. Not really, because when you were talking about how even just taking up space on TV is a political statement, it really does go deep to your question around like the appearance. Because the question is not just about coming on TV. It really TV is just a little bit of the broad reality of what that is. It's whether you're going to work, it's how you look on the road, in the church, in school, in class, wherever it is. So the conversation around women's bodies is actually what that question is anchored under. Do we have the right to make decisions about our bodies? Or is our body the only thing that defines us in a society that feels like they can either sexualize us or use or objectify us? So as a woman, being aware of that is a painful truth, but you cannot allow that consume you, because that is such a powerful thing that it would stop you from being your true self. And when you talk about authenticity, for me, it goes back to you. First of all, centering your message is so key, but also asking yourself the question about, what do I like? What makes me feel comfortable? Is this truly what what I want to wear? Or am I just appearing this way on TV because of how I think people are going to perceive me? So sitting down with oneself and asking those questions are very vital, because it would give you the strength and agility that you need to navigate the media space, whether it's a TV interview, whether you're giving a speech or a presentation, it's going to be there. I don't know if you guys have watched it, but there was an interview with Chimamanda, and she was talking about how when she started, she only used to wear like suits, black suits, so that she could be seen as very serious. And you don't have to wear color, because if you're a woman and you want to be taken serious, you have to dress that way. That it took her years to be able to say, no, I love fashion. I love wearing colorful things. And it doesn't make me less serious or less intellectual. But this is to show that even a woman on that level is explaining how she has to appear in a literature scene to be taken as serious, because even being colorful as a woman sends the idea that this is not a serious woman. She's childish. That's the word. This is a childish woman. If you have to be serious, you have to dress in the way that men perceive as masculine. And this, again, like I said, it's a broader conversation about society. But when the world is defined and designed for men, women have to fit into the male agenda, into the male ideal of what is professional, what is acceptable, what is, good TV look. So for women, it's sitting with ourselves and being authentic, and also being strategic, because what I would say again is, depending on where you're going to have this interview, you can dress for the part. You know what I'm saying? If you're on a podcast interview and it's like a chilled, laid back, you can wear your sweats, you can wear your shorts, you can wear whatever it is. If it's a political scene or like a TV thing, you may want to dress up a little bit that shows a level of, professionalism and elegance and class. But that does not mean suits. And I feel like that's a deeper conversation. But like when I say professional, the first thing we think about is the suit. But you can wear your beautiful traditional, because as a Nigerian, we love that. You wear your beautiful traditional thing, and it's still professional and elegant. So it's also us, demystifying the idea of what it means to be appropriate, what it means to be professional, what it means to be casual, and how do I want to show up in these things? Because even in the conversation about being a political statement, depending on where you are having this TV interview, even the way you show up in your outfit could be a radical statement. If you come on a TV interview that is political, or a TV interview that is talking about current affairs or any topic, and you wear something colorful, that sends a message about who you are. And if your message is now very, intellectual or has a lot of quality to it, you are already pushing the message to people that no, I'm an intelligent woman that loves to look good, and I love color, and I don't need to be in a straight jacket. There's a lady called Chidera. She's called the Slum Flower. She does interviews and she does debates in like the Oxford universities and the rest. And she does a lot of debate around gender equality. And she goes into this debate group in a low, deep V-neck that shows her cleavage and everything. And she's challenging them. So intellectual. But it's a political statement that a woman who is unclad, in quotes, is sitting down in an Oxford or a British university or one of the top university and being debated with other people who are wearing suits, and they have to take her seriously, because you cannot not judge her based on what she's wearing. So again, this goes back to strategy, goes back to authenticity. If you're a radical woman, the way you dress is also the way that you show up. If you're a woman that I'm not interested in the backlash, I want to just look the way I look, I want to be simple, you can also choose the outfit for yourself, but also recognize that no matter what you wear, people are going to talk. That's just the fact. You could be dressed from head to toe, you could wear the most fashionable thing, you could wear a professional suit, it doesn't matter. People are watching you and people are going to talk, and that's probably one of the cons of being on TV, is because you're putting yourself out there and you can't control what the viewers are going to say after they watch you. Yeah.
Very true. Very true. Thank you so much for that. That was such a powerful section of this discussion. I mean, just the fact that you've said now, it's a political act when we say yes to show up to something like this. And I hope that our experts have latched onto that. And I can already tell you that it's so difficult, even when we use the term expert, that we find that women don't, similarly to what you've said now, just to get an expert, a woman expert onto a show, they stand and go, that's not my truth. I'll ask someone else to do it. They do the same thing when you ask to join the database as an expert, because we don't stand fully in that light. We don't see ourselves necessarily as an expert. Again, comes back to the discussion earlier. But thank you so much. The next part is, what advice would you give women experts about how and when to push back if a question or framing reinforces stereotypes or stigma? This is a difficult one. Go ahead, Lanina, if you're ready.
I mean, it is a difficult one. It's something that I've also faced with guests on the show. And obviously, if I am the host, then I need to be, and I'm the journalist, I need to be suitably objective about it. I'm thinking of one or two specific shows. I think that and I am by as much as I'm a journalist, I'm also very non-confrontational myself. So I mean, to put that out there as a very legitimate disclaimer. So this is a difficult one for me. But the best thing that you can do is just, one thing that helps is to have your messaging ready. So let's say have your messaging ready. The other thing is to root and to ground yourself in your own expertise. And I hear what you're saying, that people have issues with calling themselves experts, particularly, and let me just say, we've spoken about gender. Class is such a very difficult thing, I find, these days. So in my very broad network within gender-based violence, right, I do not have a degree. Right, I've got a tertiary qualification, but I don't have a degree. And I used to say I used to say, but I love reading. I'm very well read. I used to tell people that I don't want to have it, and I don't want to go on purpose, because it's like a social experiment, right? I've held jobs where a degree was needed, and I managed to bypass that. It was just looking at sort of the system and the institution. What I found, though, is that for a lot of women who would be heads of organizations, let's say community organizations, as an established registered organization, and this person is the director, and this person doesn't feel like an expert because they don't have a degree, right? So often we will find that there will be people will be able to respond to backlash and to certain things from the level at which they see themselves. And one of the stuff that I do is try to just root yourself in your expertise. And it took me a long time. For the first 2 or 3 years of the Woman Show, people kept saying to me, but you are the Woman Show. And I'm like, no, I'm just like this middleman who's like bringing other people's expertise to the audience. Like, how can you say? And it took me 3 to 4 years to realize, oh, this is something that I am actively shaping and putting together, and that I can now call myself. You see, and I want to say expert, and I want to put it in air quotes, because I feel discomfort with that word. But I am, a producer and a presenter, and that is what I have become. And now I have the receipt of 5 years of doing the show, and yet still I don't feel calling myself an expert. And maybe that's something that we need to unpack. However, coming back to the question, if I'm going onto whichever interview, and I am nervous about the responses I will get, and if you work in gender-based violence, you'll often get a response that says, yes, but what about men? And men are also abused, and those things. I prepare for those questions. I root myself in my expertise. I say that I report I report from a space that's looking at violence against women and children, and that's where my preparation and my expertise is in. And you are not compelled to respond to anybody that's asking you questions outside of the sphere of what that brief was, right? So if you root yourself there, you can And so one of the things I just say, you know, you can, if you're asked a question, whether it's backlash or whether it's something you don't know or whether it's a different area, you are well within your right to take a breath, stay calm and say, I can come back to you later. I didn't prepare for that, or that was not within the scope of what we said this discussion was going to be about, or even I do not feel comfortable answering that question right now. And can I just say also, I feel like we are at a time in the world where one is misinformation and there's disinformation, and you know, everything that you say is like extremely political. And I see all the time that people are trying to ask difficult questions to trip you up, so that, you know, based on your beliefs and so forth. And so because the media space is already such a dangerous space for women, I will say that it can be a dangerous space for women, it becomes it can make you panic even more that things like this might come up. And so, you know, just root yourself, you know, stand firm in your expertise, know what you were speaking about, have those messages ready. And actually, you know, earlier Lola was saying about, you know, when you think about your key messaging and you think about social media, I was just thinking, you know what, before you go on, think about a way to actually get to your key messaging is to say, if this interview was going to be condensed before you go on interview into 3 or 4 tweets, what would those tweets say, right? And once you come up with that, then you've got your key messaging and you just stick to that. And everything else, just don't be intimidated. They literally can't make you or force you to say anything you don't want to. I mean, that's my stance on it. Yeah.
Thanks, Landina. Lola, from your side, given that you do live
Yeah.
sessions as well, so yeah.
It's a very interesting question. And just to piggyback, I say the difference is I'm confrontational. So maybe that's where my answer is going
Teach
to
me,
come from.
master, please.
I'm very confrontational, but one thing I told myself, and this is what works for me, and this is my why, is that I love to teach. So every opportunity that I get, whether it's on TV, radio, whatever it is, that I'm a guest, for me, I'm there to teach. So even when people ask me very inflammatory questions, or they say something that is, I don't know, propaganda or has a bit of like prejudice, I use that as a teachable moment to say, and people can be like, oh, you're confrontational, you're calling them. I was like, no, I don't call you out to insult you or use unkind words, but I'm going to use that thing you said and I'm going to tell you why it's wrong. Because for me, I recognize that there are people listening to us. There are people, and if I let you run with it and I don't say anything, I don't know who have listened to what you said that has believed that as the truth. So for me, as someone who sees herself as a teacher and a student of life, I always make sure that that is my goal anytime I go into a platform. So it actually makes it easier for me to combat any form of like inflammatory messages. I'm not even like nervous when they come up, because I'm like, okay, this is an opportunity to answer something that maybe I wouldn't have answered on a normal day. Another thing also is to prepare yourself for some of these questions. Just like Lenina said, I also work in the gender space, sexual reproductive rights space. If I'm going there to talk about contraceptive, or I'm going to talk about any issue around women's reproductive rights, and there is someone who is anti-abortion, or, you know, I don't know who's going to call in, because I've had live shows where we have guests calling and they have called in with their own questions. How do I navigate those questions? Because if you are in a particular space where you know that there are inflammatory or, you know, reactions or oppositions, there are certain common oppositions that you can prepare yourself for. So it's really important for you to prepare for those kind of questions and how to answer them. And that's something that will give you the confidence that when those things come, you would answer it. Another thing I will say is, if you've continued to practice, it's important to learn how to take a question and segue it back into your point. You might not even have answered that question, but you say, thank you for, you know, asking me that question. That actually reminds me of this, goes back to the point you had prepared. You know, so that now is, well, the more you practice, the more, you know, easier it gets. You're taking control of the interview.
Yeah.
And that's something that we need to learn, is that even if you're a guest, you also have control. And like you said, Rena, you have agency in this interview. You're not just there to be spoken at. You're there to also control the narrative. You're there with a mission. You're there with a message. It will be passed. If this person is trying to take you off tangent, you're going to bring them back again and control the narrative. So those are some of the things that I would say in terms of, like, inflammatory, or, dealing with opposition when it comes on live TV. And just on that note, I might log up very soon. It's almost 5 p.m.
Okay, no problem.
Thank you.
I've got 2 more questions, but you can tweet. So the first one is, when the cameras stop rolling, how can our experts kind of create more impact after they've been on a TV show? What are the things that they can do to keep that going?
Well, thank you. I think I also alluded to this earlier in the conversation. The first thing is, you can also post on your social media, I'm going to be on this platform, check out. Da, 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 da. Another thing is about taking clips and putting it on your social media. Because for me, that's also where, like, the conversation continues. So there's certain times you have to be the one to actually chase those producers and be like, please, has the video been released? I would love to share it with my network. So after that conversation, go online, get the video, because now everyone is posting things on YouTube, or at least on their social media. Take a download, take a battle, take a clip and post it on your social media, or any platform you use. And you use that as what I call a conversation starter. And that's the mistake that a lot of us make. We just go out and join interviews like, oh, that's the end, and you move on. Or when you take a clip, you just post the clip in a way that, oh, see, I was here. No, you can literally take that conversation, take that clip, and use it as another conversation starter on your platform and bring in a new audience. So we're having a conversation online, we're having a conversation on TV or wherever it is that we're having the live interview, but then we're going to be able to extend that conversation to offline. And what that does for you in terms of personal branding is that it anchors you as an expert. You see, now I don't run away from the word expert. I'm always there. Now call me the expert, but it anchors you as a thought leader. For women who are comfortable with the word expert, they are much more comfortable with the word thought leadership. So you become someone who is a thought leader, and you do that by taking those clips from your, appearances on other media platforms, and it signals to other media platforms that this is someone we can call to be on our platform as well.
Awesome. Lenina, before you respond to that, I just want Lolo to give her final words, 1 or 2 golden rules that she'd like to leave our community with, and then she can pop off if that's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate the flexibility. For me, I think the golden nugget is prepare. I can't just prepare not just only with your content, prepare with your appearance. I'm not talking about the physical appearance, but I'm talking about your body language. Prepare that, talk in the mirror, stimulate what that would be, talk to friends, bring 2 people together and say, hey, I'm going to be on this interview. What do you think about this viewpoint of mine? Begin to practice, and that's how you're going to gain the confidence. But the last thing and the final thing is, I'll just say, is have fun. Because we tend to forget about the fun, as this is fun. Like, you're on TV, it's exciting. I don't know how this is gonna go, but I'm really happy to be here. And that energy and that aura exceeds and exudes, when you're on TV. So just have fun, practice, and do the best that you can, and don't beat yourself up, because it's always going to get better the next time. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Lolo, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
And if there are any
Thank
questions,
you so much
I'll
for
pass
having
it on
me.
to you. Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
Lolo. It was
Thank
great to
you.
listen to you.
You too. Thank you, Lena. Thank you, Renee. Bye.
No problem. So, Lenina, we're moving to you now with those last 2 questions. Is there anything you'd like to add?
I think that, Lulu was right. Obviously you want to post that you're going to be on and get people to listen. And then I just want to expand on the conversation starter. I love that you said that. So I'm going to say what was, again, with a woman show, and that's just, I spent 5 years interviewing hundreds of women. What was really interesting to me is that we don't like to advertise our interviews. Literally, I would think that someone's going to be on the show and that they'll do half of the marketing for me, as in let their networks know that they are going to be on, and then there would be zilch and there would be nothing. And even afterwards, I would do a show, would shoot an episode, and then afterwards I would send them a link to, here is the show, and they wouldn't post about it. And so I did a post one year, after starting. And remember, I came from print. I didn't ever want to be on TV, so it was a very difficult space for me to get used to in terms of that level of visibility. But I did a post on LinkedIn and Facebook once and said that it took me a year to watch my own shows on TV. Like I couldn't watch myself. And my inner eye was too critical. My inner cringe, I think is what a lot of people called it. So I did this post and the response was just amazing across both platforms. Women were just like, yeah, no, they can't watch themselves. They can't listen to themselves. They don't like the sounds of their voices. It was a lot that came out that I hadn't considered. And so I found that very interesting. And then other people would also really, when they had articles written about them, I've had people phone me to say they feel really uncomfortable because the article wasn't speaking about the work, the article was sort of celebrating them as women. And so I think the posting, I'm still trying to solve this story because I think also it happens with social justice organizations, right? We just struggle to like post about our own stuff.
Yeah.
I have found that a good way to do it, to just expand on the conversation starter, is if you've done an interview and you don't want to be that person who says, hey, go have a look, I was interviewed here, right? About whatever. How I would frame the conversation start and how I do it is I listen to the interview and I take 1 or 2 or 3 messages from it. So I don't say, go and watch this interview with me in it. I would say, here is a great interview about the effects of gender-based violence or period poverty. You know, have you experienced this? Have a listen and let me know your thoughts. And so we move back to messaging and we move back to framing and you almost decenter yourself from it. From the conversation. And so, you know, women who also come to me and they'll say, oh, you know, I need to do branding and I need to take photographs. People say I need to take photographs, but I don't like being photographed. Me, myself, Lenina, I don't like being photographed. So some of the things I tell them is, okay, you know, if focusing on yourself makes you uncomfortable, then try. So not trying to force yourself to do something that makes you uncomfortable, but rather decenter yourself from the process. So why don't you get someone to take photos of you while you are facilitating or while you are gardening or while you are doing whatever the thing is that you talk about. And then you have like sort of more organic stuff rather than, you know, just direct and center profile pictures that you're going to use. Not that you shouldn't have profile pictures. You should. I should have them. But I'm just saying there are so many different ways to do something. And instead of forcing ourselves to fit into the traditional marketing, branding, advertising, colonial, whatever kind of structure that exists right now, even capitalist structure that exists right now, we can do things a different way. And we can find ways of doing things that are comfortable for us. And it's completely fine to do that. But what I'm trying not to do is to not share the stuff. Like, it's important, again, you know, I call it a political statement. It's important for us to be visible, particularly because we say we need to increase representation of women in the media and in public spaces. And we constantly, not complain, but we constantly raise awareness about how little women are in public spaces. And, you know, this really came home to me after I had my daughter, because I kept saying, if she's going to Google, she's not going to see any of us there. And she's not going to see anyone who looks like her in these spaces. We are the ones that need to be the change that we want to see. And the way to do that is to create media and to do the interviews so that there's a living archive that we exist in these very different positions and as experts, right? So,
Sure.
So yeah, you know, post about it, be brave, enjoy whatever comes back to you, and yeah, send to the conversation.
Thank you. That was
I think that's both the answer to the question and also, I guess, my last words. It's just like, be the representation you want to see. Yeah.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And that was really so useful, because I struggle with that, thinking about, do I post, I have been in this interview, watch this, and it is uncomfortable. So that was really a useful tip. And I'm sure there are many that will benefit from that. Thank you so much. And thank you for your time, Lenina. I really appreciate it. And to those who have stayed on for the extra 5 minutes, we appreciate your time as well. Until the next First Thursdays. And thank you again. Take care.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.
Bye.